morning. Will you please rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing from the gray hymnal, number 23, Bring Many Names, number 23. Bring many names, beautiful and good, celebrating parable and story, holiness in glory, living, loving God. Hail and Hosanna, bring many names, strong Mother God, working night and day, planning all the wonders of creation, setting each equation, genius at play. Hail and Hosanna, strong Mother God, warm Father God, hugging every child, feeling all the strains of human living, caring and forgiving, till we're reconciled. Hail and Hosanna, warm Father God, old aching God, gray with endless care, calmly piercing evil's new disguises, glad of new surprises, wiser than despair. Hail and Hosanna, old aching God, young growing God, eager still to know, willing to be changed by what you've started, quick to be delighted, singing as you go. Hail and Hosanna, young growing God, great living God, never falling known, joyful darkness far beyond our seeing, closer yet and breathing, everlasting home. Hail and Hosanna, great living God. Please be seated.
Good morning. Welcome to the First UU Church of Ann Arbor. I'm the Reverend Eric Hausman, and it is a delight to be with you this morning. I'm always aware you have so many choices of where to be in the world, and the chances of us all being in this room in this very moment together, statistically very unlikely, and so I'm going to soak it up every moment of it. Welcome to those in person. Also welcome to those of you joining us online, whether you're joining in this very moment or at some future time. Welcome. If you're new, please fill out the survey. There's the survey link online so we can better connect with you. It's at uuaa.org/newcomer survey. And we have a couple additional announcements. One is that the art fairs are this week, July 16, 17, and 18. And UUAA will have a booth in the nonprofit area. We need to have at least 2 volunteers present during the art fair hours, so if you'd like to volunteer, please see Brittany after the service, or ask one of us and we'll connect you. And also, since we have a cool booth now, we'll also have a better, or like a more substantial presence at the Ann Arbor Pride that's coming up this August. Yeah. And as we continue to prepare ourselves for this time together, I offer a call to worship. Come, seekers and skeptics, believers and questioners, pilgrims of one path and partners of many. We gather not because we have all arrived, but because we have been called by mystery, by compassion, by truth, and by love. Some of us have found wisdom in a single tradition, others have been nourished by many. Sometimes like bees moving from flower to flower, or riverbeds fed by many streams, we discover that the holy is not diminished by abundance. Today we explore what it might mean to love more than one religious tradition, not as collectors of ideas, but as people whose hearts have grown spacious enough to recognize the sacred in many forms. May we come with curiosity rather than certainty, humility rather than possession, and gratitude rather than fear. For no one tradition contains the whole of the infinite, and no one life can exhaust the possibilities of love. We are gathered in community, we are gathered for worship.
As our service begins, we turn to our flaming chalice, a symbol as multifaceted as the faith it represents. The meaning we find in its enduring flame is fluid, answering the needs we bring to it on any given day. And as we gather around it, those meanings are reflected back at us. Like a kaleidoscope, its shape-shifting array of color and design bedazzles us anew. For me, this morning, our light is a beacon guiding me home. Soon, it will be rippling across your faces, a sign of arrival and homecoming. What is its meaning for you today? What pattern will it cast before you? Everyone can participate in this ritual lighting. Here in the sanctuary, I invite Ed Lynn to do the honors, and as Ed steps forward, I encourage those of you on the live stream to enter your location in the chat as you light your own chalice. How I love to witness the spread of our light in all these little messages. The chalice is lit on Summit Street, in Ypsi, in Maine. And so please join me in speaking our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you, Ed. What does it mean to be a non-creedal faith? To eschew a narrow belief system? Without being so bound, we Unitarian Universalists are free to explore the many paths and to engage in practices that span across belief systems. A dear friend of my childhood is a pagan-adjacent UU Buddhist of Christian sympathies. In the parlance of today's service, she is religiously polyamorous, as perhaps you are yourself. What holds us together as we journey among the world's spiritual traditions? Our covenant is the tie that binds. It is the promise we make to honor and love each other as we search for truth and meaning, however divergent our journeys may be. It points the way to right relationship and, should we falter, provides a path toward renewal and healing. Let us renew that vow, as together we say, "The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another." May it be so.
Have you ever felt like you had to choose between different parts of yourself? Like you weren't allowed to be all of yourself at the same time? Sometimes the world tries to tell us that we have to be just one thing, either this or that and nothing else, right? This morning, we'll read about a kid who reminds us that we each have an entire world wrapped up inside of us, and that when we're asked to choose between parts of ourselves, parts of our inner world, we can push back and we can offer all of ourselves at once. The time for all ages this morning is "I Can Be All Three," written by Salima Ali Khan and illustrated by Noor Sofi. At home, Papa cooks keema and tikka masala. We eat with our hands. Stories of India fill the room. Bungalows and mango groves, pink temples and red sunsets. The rosy dusks sing me to sleep. At home, Mama cooks bratwurst and schnitzel. We eat it with forks and knives. Stories of Germany fill the night. Castles and mountains, old forests and fairy tales. I am woven into these dreams. At school, I speak English, eat pizza, cheeseburgers, chips. Books are full of bright heroes. Chases and explosions flash on little screens like thunder, thunder, thunder. We talk fast. We move faster. Teacher tells us it's almost time for Multicultural Day, where we'll decorate the classroom and celebrate our cultures. Each of you will make or bake a special item that tells the story of who you are. In class, fingers fly to cut and paste, sculpt and build. My classmates' smiles are bright and sure. I'm making nesting dolls. I'm making a dollar horse. Oh, says our teacher, I have one of those at home. What will you make? Jenny asks me. My hands go still. What will I make? Should I make marigolds that float like a sun in the Indian breeze? Or should I make lanterns, bright as little moons crisscrossed through a starry night? Or maybe I could make a bird that sings a soft cuckoo into the German morning. Oh, or what about my books of heroes with hearts as brave as stars? I could make those instead. Or blooms that spill like laughing bells from window boxes way up high. I try to make the perfect item that tells the story of who I am. Nothing feels like quite enough. After dinner, Mama and Papa bring out the strudel that I helped Mama knead. The ras malai I helped Papa bake, and some ice cream. "Which one would you like?" they ask. "The usual," I say. "I'll fix a plate that we can all share." I pile on some of each. Ras malai, sweet as golden honey. Strudel, crisscrossed in a powdery braid. Ice cream dolloped up on top. We share the dish, and I stare at the desserts piled high, all three of them in one, and I begin to wonder. If all three worlds are bright inside me, do I have to be just one? Am I allowed to be all three? "Do you need help with your assignment?" Mama and Papa ask. "I don't think so," I say. Maybe I don't have to choose. My heart pounds when Multicultural Day arrives. Nearby are Amy's little Dalla horse and Ethan's tam o' shanter hat. Teacher smiles down at me. "What have you brought?" I tremble, but I step aside so my worlds are out for all to see. This is what tells the story of who I am. The small bird gives her soft cuckoo. The lanterns glint from wall to wall. The strudel and the ras malai smell sweet inside their dishes. And my book upon the table waits for me. "How lovely!" Teacher exclaims. From Julian's table, we hear music, dripping soft as rain. "An imbira from Zimbabwe," he says shyly, "an ocarina from Mexico." Jan steps forward too, a Don King painting from China, Rose Mailing from Norway. "Are you three too?" The imbira clinks softly in the lantern light, and the smells of chikenduza and yangao fill the room. And in all of it, we feel the hushed hopes of many worlds wrapped up inside us. India, Germany, America, they are all tucked inside me, side by side, telling the story of who I am. I don't have to be one or two. I can be all three. The end. And now we come to the time in our service where we sing out the youngest among us to their summer programs and adventures. And so as the kids depart with their adult volunteers, will you please remain seated and join me in singing from the virtual hymnal composed by our very own Lori Reese, "Wherever You Go," and you'll find the words on the screen. Wherever you go, find your truth. Wherever you go, find your truth. You are loved to be loved. You are loved to be loved. Find your truth. Find your truth.
Once a month, we donate our collection to a group working to further our values in the world. And today, our gifts will support the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. And here to tell us more about UUSC's life-affirming work is our own Quincy Northrup. Please give Quincy your warmest welcome.
Who knew that this whole service was going to underline the idea of international chops? So here I am to talk about UUSC. So my job this morning is to increase your understanding of the work of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee and encourage you to take part in its financial support. When I was growing up, my worldview was pretty limited. My street, Orchard Lane, my local school, Greeley School, my small rural college did broaden my view, but a big city seemed like a good next choice, and I headed to Boston. My first big city, but not quite the world. I met my husband, Rob, there. We shared dreams. He wanted to go to Africa, like his physician idol, Albert Schweitzer. My dream had not included Africa, but it did include him. Though I didn't say so at the time. We married, we had a family, we took off for the world. Bangladesh, Japan, Indonesia, for 8 years of living as a family overseas. It shaped me into an internationalist, a what's that lovely word?
Polyamorous.
Yes. Having found joy, understanding, and empathy for my foreign neighbors. So this morning, I'm asking you all to become internationalists. Join me in understanding and empathy for our foreign neighbors by supporting our own Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, our international partner working in the world since 1940. They brought us this. Supporting our partner communities struggling with systems that negatively impact human rights, whether it's environmental issues, immigration issues, government oppression, UUSC works to gather together communities, partner communities, at risk of losing their rights, guiding them, financing them in the hope that we can help them make the necessary changes. In the year ahead, UUSC will be highlighting 4 partner communities, 1 in the States, 3 in nearby Central America. Victoria Ciros in Philadelphia is housing and counseling LGBTQ+ asylum seekers. Ruth Lopez, fighting for government accountability and human rights in El Salvador. Juan Lopez in Honduras and his group defending water rights, and Katia Bonte defending the rights of people migrating from the Dominican Republic home to Haiti. Each of them heads up a community group which has been working on their core problem, has been supported by UUSC, and continues their work with UUSC money and good counsel. You can support these efforts and many others in the roster of UUSC's partners in 20+ countries around the world. You can expand your worldview by taking part in the efforts of committed people to secure their human rights. So please stop by the UUSC table in the social hall with questions or comments, pick up some of the informational material available, and if you have time, watch one of the videos of this year's partners. So thank you for your participation through your generosity in this most important work.
And thank you, Quincy, for giving us such a clear picture of UUSC's urgent, far-reaching, life-saving work. You have often heard me refer to our weekly offering as spiritual practice, the mindful act of choosing to give with clarity and intention. This morning, the mission of UUSC rests at the center of our deliberations. Consider how grateful we are to be so well represented in the world, and remember that gratitude is the wellspring of giving. There are several ways to give to UUSC this morning. You may text UUAA to 73256, or you might choose to visit uuaa.org/giving and select sharing the collection for the fund. If you're here in the sanctuary, you may choose the tried and the true and leave your cash or check donation in the baskets that will soon be circulating among us. However you choose to give, thank you for your generosity. I invite the ushers to please come forward, as this morning's offering will now be gratefully given and received. Thank you. Let me just say here that when I speak of our offering as spiritual practice, I am considering the music of the offertory as an essential part of the ritual. It is offered not as background, but as centering. And thank you, Allison, for that gift. And will our ushers now please come forward? And as they do, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as you are comfortably able, and as we prepare to dedicate our offering. Let us rest in gratitude as together we say, to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Thank you. You may be seated.
Are there any native German speakers in the room? One? Could I ask to put you on the spot? See, the problem I have is that I like the poetry of Rilke, and I lived in Germany for 4.5 years, and so I'm fluent, but with mistakes. Oh, okay, also möchten Sie ein Gedicht vorlesen? Möchten Sie ein Gedicht vorlesen?
Ich kann nicht so gut lesen, aber wir können probieren.
Okay, come on. Thank you so much. And then you can also correct my translation, which we'll do. So this is a poem by the poet Rilke called Du Nachbar Gott.
I'm reading it. Du Nachbar Gott, wenn ich dich manches Mal,
You're good.
ja, in länger Nacht mit Herzenklopfen stor, so ist, weil ich dich selten eten hoch und weiß. Du bist allein im Saal, und wenn du etwas brauchst, ist keiner da, um dem Tasten einen Trank zu reichen. Ich horchte immer, gib ein kleines Zeichen, ich bin ganz näher.
All right. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Am I done?
No,
It's beautiful.
we're about 2% through. You're doing great. So you, neighbor God, when I sometimes late at night with hard knocks on the door wake you.
Klopfen.
Yeah, it's because I don't often hear you breathing, and I know you're alone in the room. And when you need something, no one is there to offer you a taste of a drink, no one to offer that to you. I'm listening always. Give me a sign. I'm very close.
Nur eine schmale Wand ist zwischen uns. Durch Zufall, denn es könnte sein, ein Rufen deines oder meines Munds, und sie bricht ein, ganz ohne Lärm und Laut.
Only a thin wall is between us, through chance, because it could be that a call from your mouth or mine brings the whole wall down without any noise or commotion.
Aus deinen Bildern ist sie aufgebaut. Und deine Bilder stehen vor dir wie Namen. Und wenn einmal in mir das Licht entbrannt, mit welchen meine Tiefe dicht erkannt, vergüt sich als Glanz auf ihren Rahmen.
From your images is this wall built, and your images are they're standing there like names, and when once in a while the light in my heart goes up, which is the light that I know you by, then that light crashes on the frames of your images and doesn't reach you.
Where am I? Und meine Sinne, welche schnell erlärmen, sind ohne Heimat und von dir getrennt.
And my senses, which tire so easily, are without home and separated from you. Kind of ends on a sad note of alienation, this poem, but thank you so much for reading it. Thank you so much for humoring me. You did awesome. You did wonderful. You know, the reason I offered this poem today is because I had a conversation with a friend recently where I was talking about a little bit about the sermon, but also about different kinds of attachment styles and relationships we have with primary attachment figures in our life, and how that sometimes plays out with our religious dispositions. Whether our personalities are so structured that we readily know that people are there for us, whether they're in the room or not, or whether we don't really know if they're there, or if they are there, if they care. And my friend at first didn't see the connection, but when I mentioned this poem, they're like, oh, you know, imagine growing up as a small child and not knowing if your parent would come if you called, or different kinds of ways that we feel abandoned through life. And sometimes we can feel that in our own religious spheres, whether it's let down by our institutions or by the gods we pray to. May we just sit with that idea for a minute or so and reflect on it with some music. I'll start by disclosing that in this realm of navigating multiple affinities and dispositions in religion, that I have a little bit of skin in the game, because I grew up Christian. I've done a lot of exploration in Buddhism. I have a deep affection for Christianity and Buddhism, and I also know that I've been terribly moved by some services in other traditions as well, like a Kol Nidra service in the Jewish tradition, or reading the Bhagavad Gita for the first time, that there were moments of transcendence and deep connection that I have found in different places over the years. And when I was in high school, I felt a very clear notion that it's either or, like there's only one truth, there couldn't be multiple truths. It just didn't compute, didn't make sense. But when I feel my heart pulled in different directions at times and see truth in different places, then I sometimes look for new language to articulate that. And one phrase that has come up over the years is, and I've said it kind of jokingly with friends, of like, I'm a little religiously promiscuous. But that has a little bit of edge to it, like it's a little undercutting at the same time in terms of either taking it too casually or cavalier, or not really caring, or being honest or transparent. And the idea of that in religion, like these are matters of ultimate concern. We want to be very sincere in our faith. And we want to be intentional, and we want to be open to what is. And one thing that I appreciate about the Unitarian Universalist tradition is this capacity to care about tradition and where we come from, but also seeing ourselves as part of being on an ongoing journey, where when we learn something new, we can incorporate that and change our views, change our hearts in ways that bring more and more love into the world. So, what would be a better word to articulate this? And I want to spend the next few minutes building a case for one. It comes from a place you might not expect. The language polyamorous communities have built over the last few decades to describe loving more than one person honestly, at the same time, without deception and without diminishment. I think it might be exactly the vocabulary that liberal religion is missing in this cultural moment. Now, navigating multiple religious identities or relationships is not new. This has happened for a very long time, and there have been different theological ways that people have tried to make sense of it and articulate it. Sometimes they talk about it in terms of sequential belonging, moving through traditions across life, each one fully inhabited in its season, but not necessarily overlapping. There's hybrid or syncretic identity, traditions that blend different things into something new, like Mayan Christianity, when the missionaries came and elements of Christianity, like saints, were overlapped with local gods, and its own form emerged. There's hyphenated dual belonging, people who hold two traditions as both fully theirs, not necessarily blended into a third thing, but genuinely held as two. Buddhist and Christian being the most common form of this in the West. The theologian Paul Knitter at Union in New York wrote an entire book on this, titled, "Without Buddha, I Could Not Be a Christian," arguing each tradition sharpened each other rather than diluted the other. Comparative theology, which is a little more of an academic sphere associated with Francis Clooney at Harvard, where you study deeply inside another tradition on its own terms, not just translating it, but really engaging in it in its own terms, and then return to your home tradition, changed by what you found, without claiming to belong to both. And there's mutual transformation, thinkers like John Cobb, who argue traditions should engage each other, expecting to be changed by the encounter, and not just to defend your own ground. But what almost none of these frameworks give you is a felt language of experience, of what it's like as a person, as a religious seeker, to feel your heart pulled and with affection towards multiple theologies and institutions. And that's a gap that I want to name and work with as we explore polyamory in the religious sphere. Because these traditional approaches have a couple problems that often come up over and over. One is, from a Christian perspective, engaging in interreligious dialogue, always feeling a need to return to the Christian source as the ultimate truth. And so even while being kind and open-minded in many ways, it's still a kind of acquisition of helpful spiritual practices and other traditions that can be co-opted and incorporated back into Christianity. In that way, a Catholic mystic might engage deeply with Japanese Buddhism, but only as ways of deepening the Christian perspective. And that's a little bit of a different take on that. Linked to this is a lot of Christian scripture that says things like, you cannot serve two masters. Either you'll love one and hate the other. Or my name, one of the names of God in the Bible, we don't sing that. Like when we list out names of God, we like to remember, oh yeah, God's referred to as Mother Hen, as Divine Mother, in so many different ways. There's tons of names for God in the Bible, but one of them is jealous. My name is jealousy. I am a jealous God. Do not have any other faiths. Do not intermarry with people of other faiths. In Deuteronomy, it's very hardcore. And a lot of that Christian impulse, echoes throughout our culture too. And sometimes this desire for purity of like, it's okay if you believe something else, but don't try to believe more than one thing. Because also that's an easier way to put somebody in a box and control them. Like, okay, we can understand you if you are a Buddhist of this particular brand, but you start mixing things together, what do we do with that? And another piece of this is that in our Western tradition, there's sometimes an overemphasis on a hardline dualism. Like it's this or that, not both. Whereas in other cultural contexts, it's not that big of a deal. There might be a household that embraces Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism in the same breath. That there might be times where one is born Shinto, marries Shinto, but is buried Buddhist. And that's just the common cultural practice of having different religions activated in different ways throughout the lifespan and in different relationships and contexts. But I'm still finding that the theological terms for this leave me a little bit wanting for the lived experience of loving more than one religious tradition. Now, just out of curiosity, you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, but I'm curious, how much does that resonate or not with this congregation right now? Like how many people, okay, I'm seeing a lot of hands, that there's a relatability to lived practice and lived experience that one can love more than one religious tradition, that we experience that. And so what would it mean to be able to name that and maybe learn a little bit from polyamory, how to navigate that in our lives? I'll be honest here that I'm not an expert in the field of polyamory. Some of you might be. I am very open right now. If I say something that I read and you're like, that's not really how it is, please let me know right away in real time. We'll work through this and I'll learn. And it'll make sense. It'll be good. But one of the things that I really appreciate, both from friends of mine who are polyamorous and from the literature, is some of the foundational principles of the importance of communication, honesty, and trust as being at the core of those relationships. Now, there's a lot of other forms of non-monogamy as well, but I'm not addressing the bigger field of non-monogamy, which includes unethical non-monogamy in different ways that people have not. I'll just give, I'm going to backtrack for a second. I think part of what's relevant here too is that the institution of marriage is not perfect, and a lot of times people violate vows of marriage and do that in ways that are not transparent or honest or fair. But people are doing that constantly. And in the same way, sometimes religious affiliation too, there's a social need for orthodoxy that's often violated but can't be named. And so I feel like having a name for and an honest intention about having healthy relationships full of trust and being intentional about what you're doing in life is very valuable. And so core principles like honesty, communication, consent, self-differentiation are all core features The writer Jessica Fern talks about some of the reasons people engage in polyamory. Sometimes, do you want to name some? Okay. Freedom. Yeah. Openness. A willingness to do very hard work. Yeah. Jessica writes a lot from a perspective of both attachment style, like attachment work in therapy. She's also a clinical psychologist, and also trauma work. And a lot of things can be worked out, in her view, in relationship with other people, that going through that hard work has a transformational character, that it's not all about hedonism, it's about being fully expressed in the world and working through things too that we need to work through, and learning things about ourselves. And in a similar way, in religious spheres too, there are things in our heart that might be seeking healing. And sometimes in one tradition, we don't get to engage that in as powerful of a way as in a different tradition. And so that should be named as like one of the desires for people to sometimes engage in polyamory, religious or otherwise. There is some great vocabulary in polyamory as well. One of them is the metamor, and that is if there's a person who has two partners, but those partners are not connected to each other, they are metamors to each other. And sometimes that influences the experience of the individual. And I think of this also in religious terms, because there are some traditions that have different stances on being a metamor. So, for example, Islam recognizes Jesus as a prophet, as a very special person, in a way that it names, don't say anything bad, but it still adds a layer of hierarchy where Jesus isn't on par with the highest prophets, but still recognized. And so it would be akin to a hierarchical model in polyamory, where there's still a primary figure, and then a secondary one is still honored and named as secondary, but still very hierarchical. There's also a notion in Hindu Ishtadevata, or henotheism, which is devotion to one chosen deity as primary focus, while treating other deities as valid paths to the same ultimate reality. This is close to polyamory with a primary partner, deep exclusive feelings of devotion at the personal level, but pluralism at the structural level. There's also Manichaeism, which absorbed Zoroaster, Buddha, and Jesus as prior manifestations of the same revealer. It's a similar shape to Baha'i's progressive model, but older by over a millennium. And there are some views that are just very exclusive, where a religious tradition will just say, at least in the mainstream and Orthodox canon, that any other forms or interests are just not allowable. And so much of this comes back to the jealous God idea, where I don't know if jealousy is the best model of love. And part of our universalist heritage is to look at God being all-loving and letting that shape our theology. So what is more loving of a God? To be a jealous God who says, I'm the only one, you should have eyes only for me. If you look anywhere else, you're evil and bad. I'm going to make sure bad things happen to you. Like, if I had a friend who was dating a guy like that, I'd say, don't be with him. And that's a blasphemous thing to say because of the culture we're in. But seriously, like, if you read the Bible through a trauma lens, there's a lot of things that don't feel right, don't feel open-hearted, don't feel loving. And one of the most loving things that I see in the writings on polyamory is the idea of compersion. Am I saying it right? Yeah. And okay, so how would you define that?
Happy for someone's happiness.
Happy for someone else's happiness. Right. So if your partner is having a great experience with another person, you're happy for them. And, that's not, in our Western tradition that we've inherited, it's not the main go-to feeling, but in terms of which is more of a loving response, to be happy for somebody who's having a happy experience and being more fully expressed in their personhood. Authentically, yeah. And like Bell Hooks has this great definition of love as to want the spiritual unfolding of another. And when you want that for someone else, it's less about controlling or having my needs met in that moment. It's actually getting to enjoy the beauty of another life unfolding, whether it's seeing a blossom in the springtime or a friend or lover, being more fulfilled in life or learning something new about themselves. But that idea of compersion is very countercultural. A few years ago, somebody noted, in German, there's a great word called Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is the joy at the suffering of another. We have a word for that. But neither in English, we couldn't even borrow another word from Germany. Like, we asked Germany, and they were like, sorry, we don't have any words for the opposite of that. All we got is Schadenfreude. And we said, we'll take it. We don't need the other one. So we had to make one up because, compersion was not a word, and we couldn't find one in German. And there was a great New York Times article a few years ago that talked about Freudenfreude as like the joy in the joy of another. And they got so much backlash from the German media. They're so like, that's not a word, we don't do that. And they're like, okay, we retract. Yeah. But what a beautiful, open-hearted thing to feel joy in someone else's joy. And that's one of the things, like in Buddhism, there is a word for that. And so like, what does that mean to be able to feel that? And that's another thing that we can or could learn from polyamory discourse. And why do people find themselves religiously, for the same range of reasons people find themselves relationally? Because one tradition doesn't hold everything they needed. That happens sometimes. And they'd rather say that honestly than quietly starve a part of themselves, because they don't believe devotion is a fixed resource that runs out. Like, that's an interesting thing, too, of whether you view love as a finite resource that if it's automatically taken away if you love someone else or something else. There was one more thing I wanted to say, but I don't remember. Do you remember? Because I'm hoping that this service challenges us a little bit to think of the ways in which our identities as people who have more than one religious affiliation at times, or multiple religious belonging is one of the terms for it, to give language to that in a way that's not merely reductionist, of saying like, oh, well, it's really only through the lens of mysticism that I can engage in these other things, or only in a certain way, but that we engage our religious lives and our lives in general in open-hearted ways that celebrate the joys of others, that recognize what we owe to other traditions, too, in terms of not misappropriating them, of being honest, of being intentional, authentic, and to not do it, and to do it in a way that helps us on our journey, continuing to evolve, and not using it as an avoidance tactic, which is the thing I was wanting to say. Because the one image that used to come to mind is the idea of like Unitarian Universalism in general, getting to be a place where you get to go to a buffet, like an all-you-can-eat buffet, and you're like, oh, I'll just have a piece of this over here. Oh, I liked this prayer from this place over here, and then this. But you never have to eat your green beans. You never have to eat okra. You never have to, I don't know what's on your list. But if you go through and you pick and choose and you only pick the sweet things, that's not, it might taste good short term, but it's not healthy for you. Like our religious traditions, like our relationships, like our eating habits, we need to be nourished. And sometimes our desires are not in accord with what's actually healthy for us. And so when we pick and choose from that buffet, we need to eat things that are substantive and not just full of sugar, not just the dopamine hit, not just the novelty, but things that truly sustain us. And to do that, too, in authentic ways makes a difference, because if you're just running away from your own faith tradition because it has something in it that you don't like, when you get to know another faith tradition in deep ways, that'll have things you don't like, too. But you don't know it when you're first meeting it. The same way when you leave one relationship because it wasn't working out, and then you're like, okay, this next person won't have problems, and then you know who has the problems in that. But still, there's this thing you just don't know yet because you don't know each other deeply yet. And religions are like that too. That if you say like, oh, I don't like Christianity because of the Crusades, and look, Buddhism doesn't have that. You don't know Buddhism very well, because there are wars, there's been bloodshed, there's been all things in all the different traditions, but we don't see it when we hold it at a superficial level, or we treat it like a one-night stand in the religious sphere. Let's be intentional, let's be honest, let's be authentic, and open-minded as we go along these journeys together, and may we make it so. Amen.
And will you now please rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing from the great hymnal, number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Number 131.
Dear friends, may love guide us. May we do so with open minds, open hearts, and support each other along the way.